Let's get this party started. Welcome to a new edition of the dOrg Hot Seat. Today we have Sandy Fatic from Calimero Network. And without any other delays, let's get this party started. Welcome, Sandy. What is Calimero Network?
Yeah. First, thank you for having me here. Happy to join. Calimero Network is essentially a framework for developers, which allow them to build, privacy-preserving apps. And when I say privacy-preserving, the main focus is on data ownership and self-hosting your data, and selectively deciding with who do you share this data with. To maybe just give you an example. So currently, if you use Facebook, all the data is living on a centralized server, right? If you use ChatGPT, all the data is living on OpenAI servers, right? And usually the alternatives is, maybe Mastodon is like a federated system, or on the other side, like running your Llama, or whatever model you use locally, right? And what Calimero does, it just provides you a generic framework for building any type of app, which is self-hosted, and then you have a peer-to-peer network for this specific app of participants, which get to exchange this data in a trusted and encrypted way, right?
All right. Yeah, exactly. So you mentioned a few things which are also on your website. One thing that I really like to do is going on websites and seeing the slogan and how many buzzwords are on that slogan. And in 2 lines and a half, we've got peer-to-peer, self-sovereign, data ownership, and verified off-chain computing. Can we go one by one and say exactly how these words are applied in the context of Calimero Network? So let's start with peer-to-peer.
First one is peer-to-peer, okay? So essentially, when you build, we have this concept of application context, and an application context is few things. One of the things is the lib peer-to-peer network, which allows transactions to be sent between members. So let's say if we have a DAO of 5 members, every single DAO member will run a node, and they will be interconnected on the networking level to propagate the messages between them, right? Or if you have a social group, let's say 10 people chatting about, Star Wars, then every single member of these 10 people will run a node, and they will use libp2p to essentially, generate the messages between them. So that's kind of the peer-to-peer part, right? No dependence on a centralized server.
Or which implementation has its own peer-to-peer network?
Not really sure I kind of understood it.
So as you said, if we have a DAO and we're sharing infrastructure on this DAO, we're building something over it. So we're going to have our own peer-to-peer network as opposed to the other DAO on the side, which they will have a different peer-to-peer network.
Exactly. So every single app instance, so you have an app, right? You can have a private DAO app, but every instance is an application context which has its own network. So if I have a chat group with you, it's one application context, a peer-to-peer network between 2 of us. But if we now have another group where we invite a third person, then you have another application context with 3 of us, again, sharing data peer-to-peer.
Cool. So what else is in this application context?
Okay, so to unpack what is Calimero stack, right? First, top level, it's an SDK for writing what we call microservices, like Calimero microservices. And currently you can write in Rust, but also we're gonna add JavaScript SDK and some other SDKs coming soon. And these app services, you include the Calimero SDK, you compile it into a WASM file. And this WASM file runs on a WASMer runtime, which we kind of we took the WASMer, we implemented it in a way that it fits our purpose. And then you just load this binary locally, you run it. And when you interact with the binary, you have 2 methods, right? View methods just return what you have in state locally. And mutate methods, they'll mutate your state locally first. And when they mutate your state, they produce something called a CRDT diff or a CRDT action. And a CRDT is a conflict-free replicated data type, which provides you the ability to reconcile data states eventually and be deterministic of like what you get in the end. Like Google, for example, uses this for like a document, right? You are changing the document, I'm changing the document, and like at some point we have to have the same state between of us, but like it's eventually gonna happen, right? Or maybe if I come on, I was offline and I come online and I send like all the state stuff I changed, it will be able to reconcile it. So like just to like recap. So the app runs in Wasmer. Wasmer produces state diffs, which then are commute. Like, they are the state diffs are instantly in your like local storage. So like you commit them into your storage, and then you broadcast the CRDT state diff or the action to the network. And then all the participants in the LEAP peer-to-peer network will get this state transition, like this state diff, and they will apply it to themselves. And that's like essentially like high level how it works.
Cool. I think that's a super clear picture. Okay. Thank you for that. Let's go on to the second word, self-sovereign. What does it mean in this context?
Like I think it's like very self-explanatory in kind of my world. When I think of like self-sovereign applications, I think these are applications where you get to own your data in one way or the other. In our case, we host the data locally and we can back it up to some certain places and just encrypt it. And then, nobody can like steal my data or like censor me or delete my data or sell it to a third party, like 23andMe, like probably will do with like all the genetic data coming. So like when we say self-sovereign apps, it's actually from like some white paper somebody wrote a while ago, was like self-sovereign data, self-sovereign applications are applications where users get to own their data. And it's like very similar to like self-sovereign money, right? In self-sovereign money in DeFi, you get to own the private key of the funds you hold or the NFT you hold. Like now we want to like extend Web3 with the ability to also self-sovereign your data, the way you store your keys, right?
Absolutely. Yep. So that's very, very related to the data ownership part, obviously.
Yes,
And one thing of data ownership is that you can only reveal it once and then it's not yours anymore, right?
exactly.
So,
I mean, if you send somebody a message, right, you send the message. Like nothing you
exactly.
can do about it, right? Maybe with Neuralink in the future, we could just like delete memory, and I don't know. Like there's not much. Once you reveal it, you reveal it. But at least you don't have counterparty risk, right? Like if you build on top of us, even if somebody decides you to kick out of the network, you still have your data. If you have a community network of members and they kick you out, you still have your data, so you can just invite the other people again into a new application context. But like you cannot get full privacy to like you cannot install people's like by people's minds, right? Like if the message was meant to me, I got the message. But generally you don't want Telegram maybe showing your message or WhatsApp showing your message. Like maybe messaging is not really a good example because messaging is like simple, right? You encrypt, you decrypt, you have a central server which just relays the messages. But this could be used for like Slack, it could be used for Jira, it could be used for private DAOs, it could be used for like investment pools on Morpho or like other things. So like ideally what I would like, maybe Discord even, right? Like you could build different types of apps in the future, in my opinion, which like anything could be self-sovereign in a way. And then, I mean, like obviously we still live in a real world. Like, your company could have employees just seeing the data, but I mean, if the employee goes rogue, I mean, they go rogue, right? Like they can get the document. Like there's nothing about it to do. But at least you don't have like counterparty risk, I think, generally.
Um, okay, so the last piece of the puzzle is verified off-chain computing.
Yes.
Can you dig a little bit deeper into that?
So, I mean, to get to the like messaging part. So if I send you a message on this peer-to-peer network, you have to know that I send you the message. Or if I
Hmm.
send you a state diff, you have to be able to verify like the data I'm changing, am I allowed to change this data? And are you actually the person who says that you change the data? Because like we don't have a blockchain consensus, right? Where like everybody verifies, like you kind of verify for yourself. And like the easiest way to verify is, I mean, you signed with your, like we have a shared encryption key. And if I am able to decrypt the data, then I can see, okay, you are the person who's sending it. Cool. And then I can have like certain permissions and access permissions, like, are you allowed to change this data? And then I can verify, like, okay, you are trying to change state which you're not allowed, but you're allowed to maybe read it, right? So like that's kind of like the off-chain verifiable, or like client verifiable, edge verifiable. Like we don't have really a good name. We are terrible with like boiling down stuff into into a buzzword.
It'll get there. Okay. So basically, you mean off chain compute, because it literally is anything that you can put on this binary, this wasm binary, any function that there is, and then you transmit the state change, or the state diff, and and then people can verify that this action
Yes.
was actually in the binary, that you can actually perform this action. Then you can apply locally, you can apply any sort of like access permissions, and to know whether your state locally on your side changes, or not, right?
Exactly. And we also say off-chain because we believe that there's a strong cohesion of what we do with blockchains.
Mm-hmm.
Because like, you know, you cannot build payments on Calimero per se, right? But you can generate a proof on the network to issue a payment, or you can call a payment contract on chain to do this. So like we really believe in this like world where you have, you know, federated user-owned networks for like data transmission and like normal logic, and then you have blockchain for like very specific things like payments, NFTs, you know, land register, like anything you can embed in a smart contract, but you necessarily maybe don't want put on chain, right? Like maybe it's not smart to put encrypted data on chain still because you don't know what happens in the future. Maybe you lose your keys. Maybe, you know, the MPC network you're using for encrypting the data gets like maliciously, and just, you know, like there's a bunch of like risks
Quantum.
involved with it. And like, I mean, in my view is like the best way to not get you know, compromise this, like you own the data, and then you can decide what you do with it.
Yeah. It seems, so maybe I'm going a little bit too far, but it seems that there is a strong juxtaposition of worlds where something that happens on a Calimero self-sovereign app is able to trigger via oracles, or is able to trigger on-chain actions as well via like or oracle or something like this. Is that something that is already
Yeah,
built? Something that
similar to an Oracle. So like the way it works. So currently we have like once you deploy Calimero, like once you want to do on-chain interactions, you have to say what's the like the source chain, and we store like some configuration parameters about the network there, like some permissions and stuff. And this contract has also a proxy contract, which allows the network to submit transactions to the proxy contract with either a multi-sig or just in like whatever method of verification you want to have, that like the network can execute payments. And it's very too similar to, I mean, maybe an Oracle, or like it's essentially it's a relayer. So we have like a relayer doing like meta transactions for the network, where you send the transactions from the network to the relayer, and then the relayer executes it on chain, and then you come it back. And then like now we're working with some other companies to also have cross-chain functionalities. So let's say you have a DAO living on like the source chain is, I mean, near Ethereum, ZK Sync, wherever, right? But like you want the DAO to be able to pay somebody on Solana, or to mint an NFT on Near, or to do, you know, rebalancing from one chain to the other. So like we are partnering now with, you know, specific multi-chain providers like Signet. Near has cross-chain. Biconomy is like one of the parties we actually want to integrate in the future as well. To ICP also has it. So like we will leave it to, you know, the network owners or the developers to decide which one they want to use. but it will allow you to have like a cross-chain DAO. Like that's one of the products we actually want to launch. So like instead of like imagine like you have tokens now in every single chain, and you want to vote. You have to vote on one chain, on the other chain, somehow aggregate this. And what we want to have is like this kind of off-chain vault, like Calimero, where you do the votes and everything, and then you just submit it to the main contract somehow later on. And like you can make payments, you can do like any actions cross-chain. So like this is like off-chain. Yeah, we are kind of like we are like a hybrid. It could be also used in just pure Web 2, right? Like you don't need to use blockchain per se at all. Like if you just build a calendar app, a company calendar app which doesn't host data somewhere else, like I mean, it's a small stupid app, but you don't need blockchain for that. And like majority of the apps we use in daily life are like small things to interact with other people.
You have a history with Near. That's where it sort of started. But as you mentioned now, you're building to this cross chain. Is there anything Near specific on your stack, or you've completely detached already, uh,
We
based on?
provide support. Like I just maybe to give a backstory, right? So I was an early engineer at Near. I joined to work on the infra team. I was like the first infra engineer. So I spent 2 years at Near. I really love Near, so like we do support Near. I think like Near is a really good technical chain. In my opinion, like one of the top three out there. The thing is, like when we started, I wanted to build something in data privacy. So I was like about to leave Near. I wanted really to build something in data privacy. And I mean, Ilya was a great boss, so he decided to put like the initial seed ticket into Calimero. And initially, when we started building it, we kind of wanted to build a sidechain for privacy on Near. But realize that like the blockchain type of architecture doesn't really work very well because you have blocks, it's slow. We used a lot of Near technology back then, and Near is like one of the fastest chains, and you still cannot do like real-time stuff there. And like the user experience is, like blockchains are made for a certain purpose, not for like building uh, a social network directly every single thing on chain, right? Like you have to have off chain indexes, you have to have the other stuff there. So we started building this kind of like private chart, like for enterprises to use it, and maybe like USDC adoption of like big corporations and like small corporations, like whoever needed privacy. But we realized like we weren't that passionate about it, and we just wanted to build like more like a general purpose thing. But that was not really possible with like the first architecture we had. So like we went to the drawing board and we were like, okay, how do we design it? And we designed it in a way that we learned a lot from Near. So like we learned that yeah, WASM is awesome, right? And like if you compile stuff to WASM, you can have any language support. And like first things we implemented Near as well, one of the first chains, because like we really believe that Near is an awesome chain, and it works. But we also realized that if you're just living on one chain, you cannot really conquer other people. So like if somebody's building on ICP and they have their stack on ICP, they probably want to stay on ICP. But we got good signals. Like we would really love that if we could build with your stuff. But like we cannot, move across the chain. And I think like why this cross-chain stuff is really becoming popular because you rooted to some place, but you want to interact with other places. So we started like integrating, we integrated ICP, we integrated Stellar, we integrated Ethereum, EVM. We are working now on some layer 2 integrations. We are working on Solana integration, probably coming soon as well. But it's like just was a, Web3 lives in tribes. We don't want to be really a part of the tribe. We just want give a tool to developers to build on whatever chain they want, right? And if Near has the biggest amount, we're gonna provide the biggest amount of developers there. If it's Ethereum, we're gonna provide it on Ethereum. But I think it really depends, on the developers to decide where they want to build.
Mhm. Yeah, for sure. Speaking of developers, what are they developing? So Calimero is this framework that you mentioned. Can you give us some examples of stuff that's being developed on Calimero? Excite us a little bit.
Yes. So we are currently have like projects. Somebody's actually building a calendar app. When somebody's building like a task automation Jira type of thing with like AI. Somebody's building so there's like a CMOF. They're building like knowledge graphs, like private, like shared memory AI shared memory. Like that's like we have two projects who are like exploring in this space to build like share. One is knowledge graphs. The other is like vectorized database types of things. Then we have like forums, like somebody is building a forum for things. We are building internally a private DAO product. We are partnering up with like some SocialFi potentially projects soon. And we're gonna have like a bunch of plugins for few social protocols. So like that's something interesting. And like we're really exploring DeFi. Like we thought like yeah, Calimero as a DeFi, it's not really to make DeFi stuff, but we realized like maybe pools for investments or OTC would be interesting. So like these are the use cases like the team is exploring with other people. Uh, yeah, like it's various, right? So like somebody's building a parcel solution tracking
Mhm.
so like it's interesting. It's
So
interesting.
it's very important in for you guys to have this developer network building stuff as like any platform, any framework. How are you engaging developers? How are you actively reaching out and searching? What sort of actions are you having on this?
Yeah. So we run a hackathons usually. So we had like really big hackathons, I think, in the previous year, and I think we had like one maybe of like the bigger bounties. So we had like 25K bounties per hackathon for hackers, and like we had a lot of submissions. So like more than 150 submissions in total across like 3 hackathons, and people built bunch of things. Like you don't even remember like. Order book, off-chain per order book. Somebody was building chat. Somebody people were building games, like very various things. And usually, like what we try to do, these developers and hackers to like engage them to stay building on top of us. And like the biggest success currently, which we had, was like people joined contributing to the protocol itself. And then we realized let's give small bounties for like small issues on the protocol, like implement a watch command, which reloads the context if the binary has changed, or like, I mean, add aliases to the context IDs, or like everything is open source. So like Calimero, like anybody can contribute to Calimero, which is nice. And like we fully open source, right? So like everybody can see the stuff we do, and like we fully believe in transparency. So like, I mean, if you want to check out what we do, go to our GitHub. And generally, like the protocol bounties is something which worked very well, and like I think we are continuing to doing this to like kind of not grow the team to an enormous number of people, but rather to have like more and more contributors who help us build the thing. And the other side, like of the things which we kind of considering, but we haven't really find a good playbook how to do it, is one side partner with foundations who think that our product is good, and then like help us, like we are working with few of them, but like ideally with more, to like partner to like build that product together and maybe involve some community members, or to like give grants to potential developers who've been contributing to the protocol, or like business people who helped us in a way, or like have a good idea which we think it makes sense and they have a solid team. So like that's something which we want to do a bit long term, but we haven't started that because like mainly the bounties are like the highest priority right now, like get a developer community, and then probably like some of the founders, right, working on the protocol have ideas what to build, and then they start maybe their own companies, and like we are like really driven by like, yeah, I respond people in Discord. Anton, who does the DevRel, also responds. But like I usually respond to every single person whoever sends me a message and is a developer. So like it's really important to me that like people. I mean, just send some commit whatever. Like try it out. And I mean, we realized also we have to improve documentation. Like our docs are not the
Hmm.
best. So like we're kind of working towards it still.
Yeah, that's the eternal problem, right? Always updating the documentation, yeah, and
Yes.
finding developers for your platform. Well, dOrg is absolutely a developer team that can help you if you ever need it. So we'll be happy to collaborate with you if you have some use cases. And in the same way, if in the DAO we identify some use cases, we will reach out to you. There's definitely a huge wave for cyberpunk values to come back now. I think bear markets like this one where everything drops, you can really separate uh, who was there for the money and then who stays, and it's time to sort of like go down and build things, build better things. We've been hearing a lot from some people within the Ethereum ecosystem to make Ethereum privacy first, privacy centric. Privacy should be like the first thing to really put all those cyberpunk values towards the front as well. Would you consider? Well, I mean, from my side, I can see Calimero Network completely aligning to that. But what do you have any thoughts on cyberpunk ideology and whether is that a good thing or not?
I mean, I am like a cyberpunk myself, I would say. Like I align with most of the values. I joined because of most of the values. I mean, I worked at Google and Facebook. I mean, I'm guilty. Many of us are, but like back then, that was the best place to work, right? So I contributed to the fall uh, of privacy, uh, but also on the other side, like you learn that there is better ways to do it, right? It's like when I joined, like, I was in Web3 in 2017, went to Facebook for 2 years, come back to Web3, and now like I don't see it ever again. Like I just feel this is like the way forward. I think it really is the future. So I line all with a lot of the values, and initially, like for me, like when I joined Near, I really liked the idea of Near, like was about really building the open web. I think like that was kind of the main premise they were like preaching. I still they're like preaching it a little bit, and that's like why I joined Near and why I joined Web3. And I really like this kind of privacy aspect. Like personally, I was not so much excited about payments and DeFi. Like now I am because I was like ignorant and learned that I was stupid, but like it was like never really a passion of mine so much. It was more about like the privacy aspect, data ownership, not being wrecked by organizations or whatever. So like that was like something which resonated with me personally, right? Like not so much, and like these meme coins and stuff. I mean, like I really don't understand. I even launched a meme coin on Twitter. It's like a fun thing, called HDHD, and I told people don't buy this crap. Like, why are you buying this crap? And like I was like, I mean, people laughed. It was a funny thing, and then it was a fun experiment, right? I made it as an experiment, but like I personally like really think that not majority of people are for the right values. And I mean that's fine, right? It is a business in the end. Like Web3 industry has become a very profitable business, and it's very hard to prevent it if you think about it. Like we can discuss that, yeah, Ethereum is decentralized, but the reality is like if somebody has a shit ton of money, they can just buy a lot of tokens and get stake in the network and run validators. And like, it's the same on Bitcoin. If you have a shit ton of money, you buy a shit of ton of miners. And then you can also like have, some bigger influence in the network than like, some random dude from somewhere who just loves to code and doesn't have any money. Like he has to build something for passion. So I think it's like, all around the spectrum, we have people in Web3, and I think it's fine, right? But I would really love to see more like these cypherpunk values, and more projects who are like building with this in mind rather than just the money in mind. Like money is, I mean, obviously you're a business, right? Everything, like you have to pay developers, you have to grow the ecosystem and stuff. But I think like now it's like 80% just for the money, 20% for the values.
Mhm.
And I think if we had more people for the values the industry would even go much higher and much better, and like it would have been a bigger like positive outcome. And that's
Right.
it's kind of my view. Like I'm also like a bit pessimistic on like how the industry looks today. Um,
Yeah,
but yeah.
it's It's definitely. I wouldn't say I'm pessimistic. I don't like what I see, but
Yeah, maybe
I
better
I
word.
am I am optimistic about being able to power through this and keep building technology that helps. And that's what you're doing. And I think it's very, very cool to be able to provide this infrastructure in order to build self-sovereign apps. Thank you for clearing our doubts. We are super excited to see what is going to be built on top of Calimero. And thank you so much for joining us today at the dOrg Hot Seat. Any last things that you want to say? Any big launches coming up? Any programs that we should check out? Any last words?
I mean, like you have a Dap Note T-shirt. It's like maybe one day we get Calimero Dap Node deployment. I like that would be cool just to say.
I
Like
would fucking love to make that happen.
you buy a box, you have Calimero running on, you plug it in, all your data stored in the device. Like that. That's like that would be cool. Just to say, I wanted to mention that. But I mean,
Nice.
I really love that you invited me. Super happy that I joined. Like I always happy to talk a little bit about what we do and stuff. Also, I mean, people, if you are coming to ETH Amsterdam or if you're coming to Prague, we will be there. We also be going to be part of the Web3 Privacy Now meetup. So like if you want to chat, right, or like come listen to my talks, that will be awesome. I mean, you can check our GitHub and our Twitter. We have a Discord, so like you can join our Discord. If you want to contribute to Calimero, I mean, just send me a message, and like I would really love to talk to you. And yeah, that's it. And also like an invite, like if we are running this AMA series about like cypherpunk and privacy. So we had two editions on Twitter. Like if you would love to join and talk also like about whatever, like we can try like just chat about whatever. That would be awesome. That'd be cool.
Amazing. Again, thank you so much for coming, and we'll put all the links below.
Yeah, of course. Thank you for having me, and bye.